Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. So today I wanted to talk about the fact that we got Brian Daboll back in for a second interview. Yesterday, it was this past weekend in general was the best weekend for football in a very long time. In a very long time. All great games, all last second finishes, but the Chiefs and Bills game pretty much topped that entire weekend off. It did not disappoint in any way. I mean, they went back and forth, 25 points in the fourth quarter. I think you add on the 7 in overtime, so about 30 something points. In the last couple of minutes of the game, the Chiefs scored, the Bills scored, the Chiefs scored, the Bills scored, the Chiefs scored, the Bills scored. And then it was just all about who won the coin flip. And it was just a really great game. But the moral of that story, of that little tangent I just went on, is that Brian Daboll's offense was humming. It has been humming the entire preseason, and it's been getting better and better and been a really great offense this past couple of years. I mean, Josh Allen deserves a ton of credit because he does a ton of extending, a ton of I'm going to extend the play. I'm going to make this dude miss, make this dude miss. I'll run for a first down. He does a ton of great things. But at the end of the day, someone's calling the plays. Someone's putting together the offense. Someone's putting a structure that allows Josh Allen's best traits to shine. And no, Brian Daboll isn't going to turn Daniel Jones into Josh Allen. That's been the big thing this last day since Josh Allen had that huge game. Some Giants fans actually believe that Brian Daboll will turn Daniel Jones or whoever into Josh Allen. I think most Giants fans understand that won't happen. But some Giants fans think that the only reason that we want Brian Daboll here is so he can turn someone into Josh Allen. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that'll happen. I think that he's a good offensive coordinator in general. He was a good offensive coordinator at Bama. He's a good offensive coordinator there for the Bills. So I want to go through some pros and some cons for why Brian Daboll deserves to be head coach of the New York Giants. And I'll start off with the pros. The first pro is that he has the connection with Joe Schoen. When Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll get into this building and start to build this team, if Brian Daboll is hired, because no hire has been made, but they will be on the exact same page with their vision for this franchise. And that helps so much. That helps that if you have someone that's coming into the building that already has the same idea as the GM, because you don't have those huge philosophical differences. So that's the first pro in my mind. It'll allow things in the building to run a lot smoother. We already saw with guys like Brian Flores and Stephen Ross in Miami, when the coach and the general manager don't mesh, you have some serious issues. So you can end up losing a really good coach. The second pro is he was part of a rebuild. I have the offensive stats right here in front of me since he's been here. His first year, the Bills were the 30th ranked offense in the entire league. His second year, and that's for points and yards. His second year, they were 23rd in points, 24th in yards. His third year, second in points, second in yards. His fourth year, third in points, fifth in yards. So he's basically the past 2 years turned what was a 30th ranked offense, which was a 23rd, 24th ranked offense, and brought that all the way up to the second ranked offense last year, and now the third and fifth ranked offense this year. So Daboll has literally turned around an entire offense, got his personnel, made sure that everybody fit into the right roles, and he has built up that offense to be one of the best offenses in the league, if not the best, because if you look at how they performed in the playoffs, they have been a well-oiled machine. Now, moving on to the next thing, which goes hand in hand with the rebuild, is that he developed a young quarterback. Yes, Josh Allen has turned into a superhero quarterback. He does everything great. He runs around great. He extends the play. He pushes people around. He throws it deep. He throws it short. Throws it sidearm. Throws it however you need him to throw it. Yes, he does that. But who helped develop him? Who built the offense around him that would help him succeed? Brian Daboll did that. Brian Daboll helped develop Josh Allen into who he is today. Because Josh Allen as a rookie, people made fun of him. People made memes. He would miss people by 5-6 yards on some throws. It was horrible. He would miss a ton of throws. He was really inaccurate. He made a ton of bad decisions, and that's why they were the 30th ranked offense in the league his rookie year. And he was able to get more and more out of Josh Allen every year, to the point to where he went from one of the more inaccurate, you know, low ranking quarterbacks as far as anticipating the throws and making the right reads. He went from the worst in the league, at pretty much the bottom of the league in that, to being one of the best in the league. So he was able to build an offense particularly around his guy and put together a perfect offense. My next pro is that he had a defensive coordinator, as a former defensive coordinator, as a head coach. So once you have a defensive coordinator as your head coach, especially someone as good as a Sean McDermott, and then you also have a veteran, former head coach and former defensive coordinator and current defensive coordinator of the Bills, Leslie Frazier, two great defensive minds in the building with him, really went a long way. I know he learned a ton about defense that way, and it's going to help him pick a good defensive coordinator as a coach. It's also going to help him understand defenses even more. So I think that that's an actual strength when you look at his resume coming over from the Bills to the Giants. I think he'll be able to identify a good defensive coordinator. I think we have a couple of good candidates already with Patrick Graham and Wink Martindale. I think you definitely looked there first. But if he has to go outside, if they move on and if they get head coaching jobs, I'm confident that he'd be able to find somebody to replace it. And then as far as replacing coaches, here we go. When you have an offensive coach as your head coach, if your offense is great, guess what? He doesn't get hired by another team. You don't lose your offense. When your offense is great, you continue to keep the same guy calling those plays, making that offense as explosive as it is. And you have a huge advantage over teams that get these offensive coordinators that, have good offenses, and then that guy gets hired somewhere else and everything falls apart. See what happened with Kyle Shanahan. If the 49ers would have hired Kyle Shanahan instead of hiring Dan Quinn, and Kyle Shanahan was the head coach there, they wouldn't have lost him, and they would not have ended up falling off. And I think I just said the 49ers. I meant to say the Falcons with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan he just hasn't been the same since he has not had Kyle Shanahan. So you want to make sure that you keep that offensive play caller as long as you can if it's working out. So those are some reasons why I think that Brian Daboll would be a great fit at head coach for the New York Giants. Some cons, there are fewer cons than pros in my opinion. But one con is it looks like we're not really doing a comprehensive head coaching search. It looks like we're talking, mostly to Brian Daboll. We're bringing in a couple of other guys, and it looks like Brian Daboll is pretty much the shoe-in to become the Giants head coach. Now, maybe Joe Shane and the Giants have conviction about hiring Brian Daboll, and they're just saying he's their guy. But the fact that we didn't go out, I'm not sure that the process isn't over yet, but the fact that it's looking like we're not going to interview a Brian Flores, who I'm not really a fan of hiring, but I think you at least have to bring him in for an interview to get his side of the story from what happened in Miami. You're not interviewing a ton of these guys that are still in the playoffs now. That is definitely a downside to me because we're missing out on hearing how these guys feel like they can help this offense become great. And then another con is he has never been a head coach in the NFL before. He's never been a head coach. We don't know if he can make that transition from offensive play caller, offensive guy, to controlling the entire team. Now, a ton of people have done it. A ton of people have done it successfully, but a ton of people haven't been able to do it successfully. So is he just an offensive coordinator, or can he make that step up to be a head coach? We hear it about every candidate that we hire. Everybody that gets hired as a head coach in the NFL, they get praise from everybody. They get praise from everybody that he is more than capable of being able to hire a staff and build a team and coach a team and be that guy. But you don't know if he can do it until he actually does it. So that remains to be seen as far as him being a first-time head coach. But other than that, he's going to be on the sideline. He's going to be calling plays. Is he going to have his head buried in the play sheet and not be knowing what's going on in the game? Is he going to be able to control calling those plays and balancing things? One thing that does make me feel a little bit better about that is that he is sort of getting older as a coach. I think he's in his mid 40s, somewhere around that. So he's not as fresh to coaching and being able to manage a game and manage at least his side of the ball. He's been doing it for so long at this point, been in that coaching role for so long. that it should come more naturally to him, and he probably wouldn't have to work as hard as a guy who was really young like Ben McAdoo would. Another con I have for Brian Daboll is that Kadarius Toney's on this roster, and I don't think that he won't be able to use Kadarius Toney, but I can't really think of someone who was similar to Kadarius Toney in that Bills offense that he was able to just get the most out of. They haven't drafted anybody like that. So is he going to struggle using Kadarius Toney in a role that fits him, like that Deebo Samuel role, like that, receiver, running back, move around, utility role? Is he going to do that? Has he been waiting to get somebody like Kadarius Toney and use someone like that? That'll be interesting to see if he's hired, how he uses Kadarius Toney, because we don't have a blueprint for how he uses a player like that. So I think Brian Daboll is really qualified to become the next head coach of the Giants. We have interviewed some other candidates like Dan Quinn, like Patrick Graham. I think we've interviewed Leslie Frazier as well. Ton of great candidates. I think Dan Quinn is a candidate that probably is going to be talked about as someone that's a finalist for this job. It seems like the Giants like him. I don't know if it's a Joe Shane thing or if it's a Mara thing, meddling, but it does seem like the Giants like Dan Quinn to a certain extent because they're also interviewing his defensive backs coach, aka his passing game coordinator for the Cowboys. They are interviewing him. So it looks like they have a little bit of interest in Dan Quinn too. But I think that Daboll is the best man for the job. Brian Flores, they should interview to get his side of the story. I don't know what actually happened, but if he did do all of those things that they're saying he did in Miami, as far as not talking to his coaching staff, as far as, being what they said that he was being, I think that you have to take a step back and probably not make that hire. But right now, I think that Daboll is the best man for the job. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.